tariffs are a potential device to get other countries to negotiate with us, but there's a big difference between using it as a targeted tool, sort of a scalpel to deal with a narrow problem, and using it as a meat axe. And I think unfortunately what we see here is a real widening of the use of them, kind of mixed rationale. The president says tariffs are good for our economy. I really question that, but a lot of people in the administration say we need to get tough with China. The real question is, are we doing it in the right way? And in the meantime, we're using tariffs against some of our best trading partners. We're using the national security excuse to impose tariffs on steel, aluminum, maybe automobiles. We're worsening our trade relations with those countries and isolating ourselves from world markets just when we ought to be doubling down on world markets.
So the National Foreign Trade Council, you represent, it's a group that represents more than 300 companies. So obviously, if it's going to impact their businesses negatively, it's going to be something that they're not going to necessarily be that enthralled with. But, I mean, we have been, over the years, the status quo has been dealing with tariffs put on by a lot of our trading partners and our competing trading partners. So I mean, the status quo, I can see how they like it, because they want to keep things as they are and not have any additional problems. But does that mean that we should just continue to just be on the receiving end of tariffs and never try to push back? I mean, it would be nice if we had zero tariffs across the board.
That's great. We have zero tariffs in a lot of our free trade agreements. We have zero tariffs with Mexico and Canada, and I've heard the administration say that was the worst deal ever. We have a lot of free trade agreements. Actually, worldwide, tariffs have been coming down for the last 20 years. Average tariffs in both the developing and the developed world have come down. Even in China. Now, we face a lot of other problems in China, and I totally agree with the administration that there are real major problems here, particularly in areas like technology transfer, IP, cyber theft, other things. I heard Congressman Hurd on your show earlier, and I virtually agree with everything he said, that we really need to get tough with China on these kinds of restrictions. But he said, and I agree with him, that tariffs aren't really the device to deal with those problems. The better way to deal with it is to get the rest of the world on our side, push China in the right direction through mechanisms like TPP, which the U.S. decided not to join, which would have given us a lot more support from countries on a lot of issues related to China, like state-owned enterprises. There were good provisions in TPP on that. We need to be able to push China towards better behavior and better norms. But this notion of just disengaging from the world economy, raising barriers at home to protect ourselves. The second thing is huge uncertainty for American business. I mean, we depend on global supply chains and inputs for manufacturing. But we've seen, this week we saw 10% tariffs on $200 billion. It's going to go to 25% in January. The President's talked about another $267 billion. We've had retaliation on $250 billion worth of U.S. exports. And exports are incredibly important to us. We export $2.2 trillion in goods and services. And these tariffs that other countries are imposing. Our best trading partners imposing tariffs. Canada, Europe, Mexico. This is not the way to solve our problem with China.
What about Canada? And do you expect, what's the holdup there? Is this our fault, or why can't they, I don't know, acquiesce on whatever it is that we're asking for to come in and make it a trilateral deal again? What's the problem?
Yeah, I was a trade negotiator, and I know these are tough negotiations, and I think Ambassador Lighthizer is doing a good job of trying to push for a deal. They got a deal with Mexico, but from business's point of view, we got to get Canada on board too. That's our largest export market, and we want this to be a three-way agreement. I don't want to delve into the details of what the sticking points are, but clearly there's some major hurdles there for both sides. I'm still hopeful they'll get a deal.